actor James Woods joins me now. James, how did you know Rob Reiner?
I knew Rob Reiner because at a very, very down point in my career, Rob literally saved my career and really put me back on track in a way that was so important and rewarding in my life. And he really fought for me when the studio didn't want me in a movie. I was 32 years too young for the part, but he really believed that I was right and could do it. It was something that virtually nobody agreed with except one of his partners, Martin Schaefer, who was the head of Castle Rock and one of the greatest production companies ever. And we did Ghosts of Mississippi together, and I went from really being basically out of a job to getting an Academy Award nomination, and I give all the credit to Rob. And it's funny, people would have seen, it's impossible to talk about him in the past tense, but I'd be at a party at my friend's house, and people who didn't know that Rob and I knew each other, they'd see us laughing and, kidding each other, and they'd go, "How is it that you and Rob Reiner are friends?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" They said, "Well, you're so different in your politics and so on." I said, "Look, let me explain something about Rob Reiner so that you know. First of all, I judge people by how they treat me, and Rob Reiner was a godsend in my life. We got along great. We loved each other. We had more fun together doing a very serious subject. It was a way to kind of get through it. And he was always on my side. But when people would say to me, "Well, what do you think of his politics?" I would say, "I think Rob Reiner is a great patriot." Do I agree with some of or many of his ideas on how that patriotism should be enacted to celebrate the America that we both love? No. But he doesn't agree with me either, but he also respects my patriotism. We had a different path to the same destination, which was a country we both loved. And when people would say terrible things to me on social media about him, I said, "You got it all wrong. And yes, I can see how you can disagree with him, but because you disagree with people doesn't mean that you have to hate people." And what Rob and I could do, Rob and I could sit in a room. I could sit in a room with Sean Penn, by the way. I could sit in a room with a lot of my liberal friends and say, "Look, I think you're wrong about this, this, and this." And they could say the same to me, and we would find a way to work it out. And that was one of the great things about him. He was a real thinker when you had a chance to talk to him. And a lot of people just don't think anymore. And look, I knew and by the way, we're talking about a tragedy here about Rob and Michelle,
right?
Two extraordinary, lovely people. And you can't forget how important it is, because that marriage, Michelle did in Rob's life what Rob did in my life at a time when I needed him. And all I've ever said about Rob Reiner is he's somebody I love, respect, and cherish. And when my friend Carol called me and said, "Listen, I want you to hear about this before it's on the news. Rob and Michelle were murdered." And I literally said, "Rob and Michelle who?" She goes, "Reiner." And I said, I literally, when you can't breathe, I literally said, and I said, "Was it a home invasion?" And she said, "We don't know, but it may have been Nick."
Oh.
And I'm telling you, I just felt the floor. I just felt my heart drop. And I just thought, what Tracy's going to go through, what
Did you have any
family?
Did you have any idea that this would come at the hands of the son?
No, I did not. No, that was not. I didn't know the children very well, except Tracy, because I'd also done a movie with Penny, so Tracy was around a lot. And I knew them through work, and you learn everything you need to know about people when you're working on a movie. It was an extraordinary experience on that movie. I worked with Rob and Whoopi. Whoopi and I were Whoopi Goldberg played Myrlie Evers, and we got along so well. And people are always shocked when I speak well of Whoopi Goldberg. But I love Whoopi, and I love the way she treated me on the movie. And, it was a very happy experience and a very powerful one. And Rob's dedication to telling the story of Medgar Egger's assassination, and the way, in particular, Rob spoke, and you mentioned this, it was mentioned on Laura Ingram's show, about how Rob talked when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I knew Charlie Kirk. I supported him. I'd seen him last year just before Christmas. And to know that he had been assassinated was so devastating. People said such horrible things. And Rob did not. And when people say horrible things about Rob right now, I find it, quite frankly, infuriating and distasteful. Did I agree with his politics? I did not. Did I love him as a friend, as an artist, as an icon of Hollywood, and as a patriot? I most certainly did. And I am just absolutely devastated by this terrible event, especially for his family.
Yeah.
And for all of America and for film lovers across the world.
Well, we can tell how much he meant to you and the great effect he had on your life and your career, and we can tell the deep friendship that you guys cherished. What next? I mean, this country is like, you got a shooting at an Ivy League school, you got Afghan migrants mowing down National Guard, you get knife attacks in Brentwood again. Like, what the hell is going on with this country?
You know, Jesse, several times we tried to get together, and once it was around the time of the Palisades fire. Another time I had emergency heart surgery, and I thought, oh, I'm finally going to get to talk to Jesse under the worst circumstances possible. I had another emergency surgery 6 weeks ago, and my beloved wife, Sarah, just started sobbing. And I said, what's the matter? She said, this has been such a horrible year. You know, Charlie was murdered. And when this happened, I just looked at her and she said, I would give anything for this to be New Year's Day 2026, because this has been the worst year I could ever experience. I mean, the world is going insane. And by the way, you just glossed over this, but these drugs that people are on, at prescription as well as the illegal drugs, I watch football. I don't usually watch network television, but I was watching football, and they advertise one drug after another after another. You look at the fine print, and suicidal tendencies and homicidal tendencies, and the list of side effects. And I'm thinking, if everybody's on this stuff, just the sheer mathematical possibility of insane behavior, violent, insane behavior, has got to be taking place. I'm not talking about this case because I don't know the facts of the Nick's situation. I know we've been in rehab and so on, but it's not my place to judge. But you're asking about the world in general. I mean, I grew up 7 miles from Brown University. I was offered a scholarship to Brown University. It's a beautiful, beautiful campus. It's gone very left-leaning in its teaching protocols and so on. So did it surprise me that one of the victims was a beautiful, lovely 19-year-old young woman who was the head of the Young Republican Club? I don't know if the motive of the killer was political, but I'm not surprised that the one who got murdered, that we all hear about, of the others who were also shot, was, a young conservative. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if she was targeted.
It doesn't surprise me when I hear that. Look, I'm a Roman Catholic. I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I say to all of them, you've got to be careful. There is now a jihad against Jews in the world, and people are just upfront about it. They're just saying it. There's, this country over the past 4 years, and, I don't want to get into politics because I want to talk about Rob, but, there has been an invasion in this country that if you look at Europe and see how far ahead the invasion is progressing there, that is going to end this country as we know it if we don't figure it out.
Yep. We got to lock down the borders, and we have to stop being so insane. Woods, yeah. You're the best. I'm glad you're on. I hate that it's under these circumstances. We're big fans of you here at Primetime, and it was really special and a real honor for you to come on and tell us about your relationship with Rob Reiner. Thank you so much. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.